I never thought my wedding day would end with me standing in a hotel bathroom, mascara running down my face, while my little sister announced to 300 guests that she was carrying my husband's child. Let me back up, because this nightmare didn't start at the altar. It started 6 months earlier, when I introduced my fiancé Marcus to my family for the first time. My sister Jenna had just turned 23, 7 years younger than me, and she'd always been the wild one. The one who got away with everything because she was creative and free-spirited, while I was the responsible older sister who paid my own way through college and never missed a shift at work. Marcus and I had met at a charity gala 2 years before. He was a corporate lawyer, successful, charming, with dark eyes that made me feel seen in a way I'd never experienced. We moved in together after a year, and when he proposed on a beach in the Maldives, I actually cried. Not delicate tears, ugly, gasping sobs of happiness. I'd never felt so certain about anything. That first family dinner should have been a warning. We gathered at my parents' house, a sprawling suburban home where my mother had prepared enough food to feed an army. Jenna arrived late, as always, wearing a crop top that made my father's jaw tighten. She hugged me, then turned to Marcus with a smile that lingered too long. "So you're the famous Marcus," she said, her voice dropping into a register I'd never heard before. "Sarah hasn't stopped talking about you." Throughout dinner, I noticed small things. The way Jenna kept refilling Marcus's wine glass. How she laughed too loud at his jokes, throwing her head back to expose the long line of her throat. The way she'd lean across the table when asking him questions, her hand occasionally brushing his arm. I told myself I was being paranoid. She was just being friendly, right? That's what I wanted to believe. But then my mother noticed too. "Jenna, honey, let Marcus eat his dinner," she said with a tight smile. My father said nothing, as usual. He'd always let Jenna get away with murder. His precious baby girl who could do no wrong. After that dinner, things escalated. Jenna started showing up at our apartment unannounced. "I was just in the neighborhood," she'd say, though we lived 30 minutes from her place. She'd stay for hours, always positioning herself next to Marcus on the couch, finding excuses to touch his shoulder, his knee. Once, I came home from work early to find her alone in our apartment. She claimed Marcus had let her in to wait for me, that she'd lost her phone and needed to charge it. "Where's Marcus?" I asked, looking around. "Oh, he had to run out for a work call," she said, not meeting my eyes. "He said it was fine if I waited." Something felt wrong, but I couldn't pinpoint what. The apartment smelled different. Her perfume, sickly, sweet, and cloying, seemed to cling to every surface. I found Marcus's laptop open on the dining table, which was strange because he was obsessive about closing it when he left. I confronted Marcus that night. "Why would you let Jenna into our apartment when I'm not here?" He looked genuinely confused. "What are you talking about? I didn't see Jenna today. She said you let her in, that you had a work call." His face darkened. "Sarah, I was in court all afternoon. I didn't come home until 20 minutes before you did." He showed me his calendar, his phone location history. He was telling the truth. That meant Jenna had lied. But how had she gotten in? 2 weeks later, I discovered my spare key was missing from my purse. I'd kept it in the inside pocket, and now it was gone. When I called Jenna to ask if she'd seen it, she was defensive. "Why would I take your key? God, Sarah, you're so paranoid lately. Are you okay? Maybe wedding planning is stressing you out." She was right about one thing: wedding planning was consuming my life. I had a binder 3 inches thick, spreadsheets tracking RSVPs, vendor contracts, seating arrangements. My job as a marketing director was demanding enough, but planning a 300-person wedding while working 60-hour weeks was pushing me to my limit. Marcus helped where he could, but he was in the middle of a huge case. We barely saw each other some weeks. That's when the cracks started showing. Little arguments about nothing. He'd snap about dishes in the sink. I'd get angry when he forgot to pick up the dry cleaning. We were both exhausted, stretched thin, and I kept telling myself it was temporary. After the wedding, Everything would go back to normal. But Jenna was always there, inserting herself into our lives. She volunteered to help with wedding planning, which my mother thought was so sweet. I didn't want her help, but refusing would make me look like the bad guy. So I gave her small tasks, addressing invitations, picking up favors. Nothing important, except she managed to make even simple tasks complicated. She accidentally ordered the wrong color ribbons. She forgot to mail half the invitations, so we had to send them late. Once, she offered to pick up my wedding dress from the final fitting. When she brought it to my apartment, there was a small tear in the lace near the hem. "Oh my God, Sarah, I'm so sorry," she gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "It must have caught on something in my car. Don't worry, I'll pay to fix it." But her eyes held something I couldn't quite read. Satisfaction? Triumph? I had the dress repaired, and it cost $800. Jenna never paid me back, despite her promises. 3 months before the wedding, Marcus started acting strange. He'd be on his phone constantly, texting someone, then quickly putting it away when I walked into the room. He started working late, more often. When I asked about his day, his answers were vague. "Marcus, is everything okay?" I asked one night, watching him stare at his phone screen with an expression I couldn't decipher. "Yeah, fine, just work stuff. This case is killing me." But his case had wrapped up 2 weeks earlier. I'd seen the celebratory email from his firm. I did something I'm not proud of. One night, after he fell asleep, I took his phone from the nightstand. My hands were shaking as I typed in his passcode, our anniversary date. But the passcode didn't work. He'd changed it. In 3 years together, he'd never changed his passcode. My stomach dropped. The room felt too hot, too small. I couldn't breathe. When I confronted him the next morning, he was defensive. "I changed it because of work. We have new security protocols." Jesus, Sarah, do you not trust me? He made me feel crazy for questioning him. Paranoid. Controlling. So I apologized, even though something in my gut was screaming that something was very, very wrong. 2 months before the wedding, Jenna started posting cryptic things on social media. Photos with captions like, "Some secrets are worth keeping, and the truth always comes out in the end." When I asked her what she meant, she just smiled. "Nothing, just being philosophical. You're so suspicious lately, Sarah. Is everything okay with you and Marcus?" The way she said his name made my skin crawl. Then, 6 weeks before the wedding, my mother called. "Honey, Jenna's not feeling well. She's been sick for weeks. I'm worried about her." "What kind of sick?" "Nausea. Fatigue. I keep telling her to go to the doctor, but you know your sister. She hates doctors." A cold feeling settled in my chest. "Mom, has she been throwing up? In the mornings?" There was a pause. "How did you know?" I couldn't say it out loud. Couldn't form the words. Because if I said it, it might be true. And I wasn't ready to face that possibility. But I started watching more carefully. And I saw things I'd been missing. The way Marcus and Jenna would exchange glances across the room. How they'd both suddenly need to step outside during family dinners. The night I came home early and found them sitting close together on the couch, jumping apart when I walked in. "We were just talking about your bachelorette party," Jenna said quickly. "It's a surprise." But Marcus looked pale, almost sick. 1 week before the wedding, I was picking up decorations from a rental company when I saw them. Marcus and Jenna, sitting in his car in a parking lot across the street. They were talking intensely, and then Jenna started crying. Marcus reached out and wiped her tears, his hand lingering on her cheek. I stood frozen on the sidewalk, shopping bags cutting into my palms. Part of me wanted to march over there and demand answers. But the coward in me, the part that was desperately clinging to the fantasy of my perfect wedding, my perfect life, told me to pretend I hadn't seen anything. So I did. I went home, unpacked the decorations, and when Marcus came home 2 hours later, I said nothing. "How was your day?" he asked, kissing my forehead. "Fine," I lied. How was court? Exhausting, he lied back. We were two people living in a house built on lies, and I think we both knew it. But the wedding was in 7 days. Deposits were non-refundable. 300 guests had made travel arrangements. What was I supposed to do? Call it off based on a feeling? Based on suspicions I couldn't prove? The night before the wedding, at the rehearsal dinner, Jenna looked different. She was wearing a loose, flowing dress, and she kept her hand pressed protectively over her stomach. My mother noticed too. Jenna, are you feeling all right? You look pale. I'm fine, Mom. Just tired. But she wasn't fine. I could see it in her eyes, in the way she wouldn't look at me directly. And Marcus kept watching her with an expression that made my heart break. It wasn't lust. It was concern. Tenderness. The way you'd look at someone carrying something precious of yours. That night, I barely slept. I lay next to Marcus in our hotel room we'd decided to spend the night before the wedding apart, meeting tradition, and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow, I would walk down an aisle covered in white roses. Tomorrow, I would promise forever to a man who might be carrying on an affair with my sister. Tomorrow, my life would change irrevocably, one way or another. The wedding day dawned bright and clear, mockingly perfect weather. My bridesmaids helped me into my dress, the one that had been torn and repaired, and they told me I looked beautiful. I stared at myself in the mirror and saw a stranger. My hair was perfect. My makeup was flawless. But my eyes looked hollow, haunted. Are you nervous? My maid of honor asked, squeezing my hand. Terrified, I admitted. And she laughed, thinking I was talking about normal wedding jitters. The ceremony was a blur. I remember walking down the aisle on my father's arm, seeing Marcus at the altar, looking devastatingly handsome in his tuxedo. I remember saying my vows, hearing him say his, wondering if he meant them. I remember the weight of the rings, the applause, the kiss that felt like goodbye instead of hello. At the reception, everything was perfect. The flowers were exactly as I'd envisioned. The string quartet played beautifully. The food was exquisite. 300 people ate and drank and celebrated, and I moved through it all like a ghost. Jenna was there, of course, seated at the family table. She wore a champagne-colored dress with a flowing skirt that concealed her stomach. She'd barely touched her food all night, and when the champagne was poured for toasts, she pushed her glass away. My best friend Rachel was the first to give a toast. She talked about how she'd never seen me happier than when I met Marcus, how she knew from the first time she saw us together that we were meant to be. Her words felt like knives. Then my father stood, wine glass in hand, to give his toast. He talked about watching his little girl grow up, about how proud he was of the woman I'd become. He talked about welcoming Marcus to the family, and then Jenna stood up. Everything went quiet. This wasn't planned. She wasn't supposed to give a toast. My mother's face went white. Jenna, my father said softly, sit down, honey. But she didn't sit down. She stood there, one hand on her stomach, and her voice rang out clear across the reception hall. I have an announcement to make. My heart stopped. Time stopped. The whole world narrowed to Jenna's face, flushed and determined, and the words I knew were coming before she even said them. I'm pregnant. There was a moment of confused applause. Some people thought this was a planned announcement, a happy surprise to share on a joyous day. But I saw my mother's face crumble. I saw my father grip the edge of the table. And I saw Marcus go absolutely white. And, Jenna continued, her voice shaking now, the father is Marcus. The applause died. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the sound of glass shattering as someone dropped their wine glass. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't process what I'd just heard. Marcus stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. Jenna, what the hell are you doing? Telling the truth, she shouted, tears streaming down her face now. I'm tired of lying. I'm tired of sneaking around. You said you loved me. You said once the wedding was over, you'd tell her. Every eye in the room turned to Marcus, then to me. I felt like I was outside my body, watching this happen to someone else. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be my wedding. My husband, my sister. Sarah, Marcus started, reaching for me. I stepped back. Don't touch me. My mother was sobbing openly now. My father looked like he might have a heart attack, his face purple with rage. The guests sat frozen, 300 people watching my life implode in real time. How long? I heard myself ask, my voice surprisingly steady. How long has this been going on? Jenna and Marcus looked at each other, and that look told me everything I needed to know. Since the engagement party, Jenna whispered. It just happened. We didn't mean for it to get out. The words came from somewhere deep inside me, somewhere cold and dead. Both of you, get out of my wedding. Sarah, please, let me explain, Marcus begged. Explain what? I screamed, and the room flinched. Explain how you fucked my sister? Explain how you both lied to me for 6 months? Explain how you stood at that altar an hour ago and promised to be faithful while you knew she was carrying your child? Security, thank God we'd hired security, was already moving toward Jenna and Marcus. My maid of honor had her arms around me, holding me up because my legs had stopped working. I love you, Sarah, Marcus said desperately, as security grabbed his arm. This was a mistake. The baby doesn't mean anything. The baby doesn't mean anything? Jenna shrieked. You told me you loved me. You told me we'd be together. And there it was. Not just betrayal, but competing betrayals. He'd lied to both of us, played both of us, and now his house of cards was collapsing. They were escorted out, Jenna crying hysterically, Marcus trying to pull away from security to talk to me. My parents followed them, my mother's sobs echoing through the hall. I stood there in my perfect white dress, in the middle of my perfect reception, surrounded by 300 people who had come to celebrate my love story. Except there was no love story. There was only lies and betrayal and the ruins of everything I'd thought my life would be. Rachel grabbed the microphone. I think we need to end the evening here, folks. Thank you all for coming. People started gathering their things, whispering, staring at me with a mixture of pity and morbid curiosity. Some people tried to approach me, to offer comfort, but I couldn't hear them. There was a ringing in my ears, a numbness spreading through my body. I walked. I don't remember walking, but I must have to the hotel bathroom. I locked myself in a stall and finally let myself feel it. The pain hit me like a physical blow, doubling me over. I gasped for air, mascara running down my face, smearing the makeup that had been so carefully applied hours earlier. My sister, my baby sister who I'd protected, defended, made excuses for my entire life. And Marcus, the man I'd chosen to spend my life with, who'd held me and told me he loved me while he was sleeping with her. 6 months. It had been going on for 6 months. Since my engagement party, where I'd been so happy, so naive, introducing them like it was the most natural thing in the world. Marcus, this is my little sister Jenna. And something had sparked between them that night. Something I'd been too blind or too trusting to see. I thought about all the signs I'd ignored, the missing key, the changed passcode, the late nights, the way they'd looked at each other. My mother asking if I was sure about Marcus 2 weeks before the wedding, a conversation I'd dismissed as pre-wedding jitters. He just seems distracted lately, she'd said. Are you sure everything's okay between you two? Everything's perfect, Mom, I'd insisted. But nothing was perfect. Nothing had been perfect for months, and I'd been too invested in the fantasy to see the reality. There was a knock on the bathroom door. Sarah? Honey, it's Rachel. Let me in. I unlocked the door with shaking hands. Rachel took one look at my face and pulled me into her arms. I sobbed against her shoulder, probably ruining her bridesmaid dress, but she just held me and let me break apart. What am I supposed to do? I whispered. Right now? Nothing. Right now, we're going to get you out of that dress, into comfortable clothes, and somewhere safe. Tomorrow, we deal with everything else. She helped me back to the bridal suite, where my other bridesmaids were waiting. They'd already packed up my things, gotten my stuff from the room I was supposed to share with Marcus tonight. Someone had even thought to grab my phone, which had been blowing up with messages. I couldn't look at them, couldn't face the pity, the questions, the drama. I just wanted to disappear. They got me out of the wedding dress, that beautiful, expensive dress I'd agonized over choosing, that had been torn and repaired, that I'd worn for exactly 3 hours before my marriage imploded. Someone carefully hung it up, but I wanted to burn it. Burn every reminder of this day. Rachel drove me to her apartment. I spent that night, what should have been my wedding night, on her couch, staring at the ceiling, trying to understand how my life had shattered so completely in the span of 15 minutes. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Marcus called 47 times before I finally blocked his number. Jenna sent a stream of texts, starting with apologies and escalating to anger. "You always got everything," one message read. "Perfect grades, perfect job, perfect life. Why couldn't you let me have this one thing?" This one thing. My fiancé. The father of her child. She thought she deserved him because I'd had too much already. My parents called too. My mother was beside herself, begging me to call her back. My father left one message: "We need to talk about this as a family." But they weren't my family anymore. How could they be? The next morning, I woke up to discover the wedding disaster had already made it to social media. Someone had recorded Jenna's announcement and posted it online. Within hours, it had thousands of views, comments, shares. Bride's sister announces pregnancy with groom at wedding was trending on Twitter. I was a viral video. My pain, my humiliation, was entertainment for strangers. Rachel tried to keep me off social media, but I couldn't help myself. I read the comments, each one a fresh cut. Why would the groom marry her if he was in love with the sister? The sister is way hotter, not gonna lie. This is fake. Has to be fake. No one is this messy in real life. But it wasn't fake. It was my life, played out for the entertainment of millions. On day 3, my mother showed up at Rachel's apartment. Rachel tried to turn her away, but I told her it was okay. Maybe I needed to hear what she had to say. Maybe there was an explanation that would make this make sense, though I couldn't imagine what it could be. My mother looked like she'd aged 10 years in 3 days. Her eyes were red and swollen, her hair uncombed. She'd always been so put together, so concerned with appearances. Now she looked broken. "Sarah, baby, I'm so sorry. Did you know?" The question came out flat, emotionless. "What? No! Of course not. How could you think?" "Because you've always protected her, always made excuses for her, always let her get away with everything." My mother flinched. "She's your sister. She made a terrible mistake." "She didn't make a mistake, Mom. She made a choice. Every day for 6 months, she chose to betray me. And Marcus chose to betray me. And I stood there like an idiot, planning a wedding, while everyone else knew I was a joke. No one knew, Sarah. I swear, if I had known, you would have what? Stopped it? Or would you have made excuses for her like you always do?" The truth was in her silence. We both knew she would have tried to smooth it over, to find a way to blame me for not paying enough attention to Marcus, for working too hard, for not seeing what was right in front of me. "She's pregnant, Sarah. She's going to need support." "Then you support her. You and Dad and Marcus. But I'm done. With all of you. You can't mean that. She's your sister. This baby will be your niece or nephew." I laughed, a harsh sound that hurt my throat. "That baby is not my niece or nephew. That baby is the product of 6 months of lies and betrayal. And if Jenna thinks I'm going to play happy aunt, she's even more delusional than I thought." My mother left crying. I felt nothing. The numbness had settled in, a protective shield against the pain that threatened to consume me. Over the next few weeks, the full story emerged in pieces. Marcus had been attracted to Jenna from the start, but had fought it because he loved me, or so he claimed. At the engagement party, Jenna had followed him outside when he went to take a work call. They'd kissed. Just a kiss, they both insisted. Like that made it better. But one kiss led to another. Secret meetings. Marcus would tell me he had to work late, then meet Jenna at her apartment. She'd tell our parents she was going out with friends, then spend the night with my fiancé. 3 months before the wedding, Jenna discovered she was pregnant. They'd been careless. Or maybe, as Marcus later admitted, part of him had wanted to get caught, wanted someone to make the decision for him because he couldn't make it himself. He'd convinced Jenna to stay quiet until after the wedding. "We can't hurt Sarah like this," he'd said. "Let her have her day. Then we'll figure it out." But Jenna couldn't take it anymore. Watching me plan a wedding to a man she was in love with, carrying his child, pretending to be the supportive sister, it had broken something in her. So she'd done the cruelest thing possible. She'd told the truth in the most public, humiliating way imaginable. I filed for an annulment. In our state, fraud was grounds for annulment, and lying about being faithful to marry someone certainly counted as fraud. Marcus didn't contest it. He even apologized. A long, rambling letter about how he'd never meant to hurt me, how he'd gotten caught up in something he couldn't control. But I read between the lines. He wasn't apologizing for the affair. He was apologizing for getting caught, for not being able to juggle both of us successfully, for letting it blow up the way it did. Jenna tried to reach out multiple times. She wanted to explain, to make me understand. In one particularly unhinged message, she told me that she and Marcus were soulmates, and that I should be happy for them because real love always finds a way. I blocked her number, changed my locks, started seeing a therapist twice a week because I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't function. I kept replaying everything, looking for the moment I could have changed things, the choice I could have made differently. But there was no moment. There was just 6 months of careful deception by two people I'd trusted more than anyone in the world. Work became my salvation. I threw myself into projects, stayed late every night, volunteered for every assignment. My boss pulled me aside once to ask if I was okay. "I'm fine," I lied. "Just staying busy." She looked at me with knowing eyes. "Sometimes staying busy is how we survive. Just don't forget to actually live at some point." But living felt impossible. Living meant facing the fact that I was 30 years old, divorced before I was even technically married, estranged from my entire family, and unable to trust anyone. 6 months after the wedding that wasn't, Jenna had her baby. A girl. She named her Emma. My mother sent me a photo. I hadn't blocked her yet, though I rarely responded to her messages. The baby had Marcus's dark eyes. I stared at that photo for a long time, at this tiny person who existed because two people I loved had destroyed my life, and I felt nothing. No rage, no pain, just a vast emptiness where my family used to be. Marcus married Jenna 4 months later. A small ceremony, just immediate family. My parents attended. My mother posted a picture on Facebook. Jenna in a simple white dress, Marcus in a suit, baby Emma between them. "So happy for the new family," the caption read. I thought about commenting. Thought about posting the video of Jenna's announcement at my wedding. Thought about burning their lives down the way they'd burned mine. But what would be the point? They'd already lost everything that mattered to me. Let them have each other. Let them build a life on the foundation of lies and betrayal. I hoped it crumbled beneath them. A year has passed now since that wedding day. I'm in a different place, both literally and figuratively. I moved across the country, took a job in Seattle, started over where no one knew my story, where I could be just Sarah, not that woman whose sister stole her groom. I'm dating someone new. His name is David, and he's kind and patient and doesn't push when I'm not ready to talk about my past. He knows the broad strokes divorced. Complicated family situation, but not the details. Not yet. Maybe someday. My therapist says I'm making progress. That the fact I can even consider trusting someone again is a sign of healing. Some days I believe her. Other days, I wake up and my first thought is still of that moment. Standing in my wedding reception, hearing Jenna's voice announce her pregnancy, watching my entire life shatter like glass. I haven't spoken to Jenna or Marcus in over a year. My mother still tries to reach out, usually on holidays or birthdays, asking me to forgive Jenna, to meet my niece, to be a family again. I delete the messages without responding. My father called once, drunk, crying. "I'm sorry," he slurred. "I should have protected you better. Should have seen what Jenna was doing. Should have raised her better." "Yes," I said. "You should have." Then I hung up. Because here's what I've learned. Some betrayals are too deep to forgive. Some wounds don't heal. They just scar over. And some families aren't worth saving. I heard through the grapevine that Marcus and Jenna are struggling. Turns out, a relationship built on betrayal doesn't make for a solid marriage. Who would have thought? They're in couples therapy, fighting about money, about Marcus's long hours at work. Jenna's lonely, stuck at home with a baby, realizing that being a wife and mother isn't the fairy tale she imagined. Part of me, the small, petty part I'm not proud of, feels satisfied. Karma is real, and it's catching up to them. But mostly, I feel nothing. They're strangers to me now, people who exist in a life I used to live. I've built something new, something that's mine alone, built on a foundation of hard-won self-reliance and carefully guarded trust. Last week, I got a wedding invitation in the mail. Rachel is getting married. I'm going to be her maid of honor. As I looked at that invitation, I felt fear flutter in my chest, fear of weddings, of public celebrations, of standing in front of people and watching love be declared. But I'm going to do it anyway, because not everyone is Marcus and Jenna. Not every love story ends in betrayal, and I refuse to let what they did take any more from me than they already have. I'm not the same person who walked down that aisle a year ago, naive and trusting and so certain of her future. That woman is gone, and I don't know if I'll ever get her back. But maybe that's okay. Maybe the woman I'm becoming is stronger, more cautious, yes, more guarded, but also more resilient, more aware, more myself. My wedding day ended in disaster, but my life didn't end there. It just changed. Brutally, painfully, publicly changed. But I'm still here, still standing, still moving forward. And that, I'm learning, is its own kind of victory.